Thank you, Father. The House will come to order. We have some guests for the pledge, which is wonderful. We have Gary Gonzalez, AJ Landon, Robert Fenchick, and Lynn Wooten from Charis Bible College, Woodland Park. Guests of Representative Mark Baisley.
Please join us as we recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Schiebel, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile. Rep. Amabile is excused. Bacon.
Here.
Baisley. Benavides. Burnett.
Here.
Bird. Bockenfeld is excused. Basenecker is here. Bradfield. Rep. Bradfield's excused. Caraveo.
Here.
Carver. Catlin. Cutter. Doherty. Representative Doherty. Duran. Esgar. Exum. Froelich. Geithner. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Hanks is excused. Herod. Holtorf. Hooten. Representative Hooten's excused. Judah. Kennedy. Kip. Larson. Lindsay. Okay. Rep. Lindsay's present. Lontine. Luck. Lynch. McCluskey. McCormick. McKean is excused. McLaughlin is excused. Michelson Janae. Mullica. Neville. Ortiz. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Representative Ricks is excused. Roberts. Sandridge.
Here.
Sirota. Snyder. Soper.
Here.
Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez A. Valdez A is here. Valdez D. Van Beber. Representative Van Beber is excused. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams. Woodrow.
Here.
Woog. Young. And Mr. Speaker, present. Yep, and then Bockenfeld and Bradfield came in. I think that's it. That's Mobley came in.
Okay. 59 present, 6 excused. We have a quorum. Representative Basenecker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Journal of Monday, April 11, 2022 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Oh. The ayes have it. The motion's approved. That brings us to announcements and introductions. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, members. House Judiciary will meet today at 1:30 p.m. We will hear one bill, House Bill 1326. We are in the Old State Library. Bring your thermos of coffee.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, everyone. So I missed being with you last Tuesday, which was National Librarian Day, and so I decided that we could celebrate it today, a week late, which is why you will find one of these bookmarks on your desk. So in case you're wondering, what is this? It is a bookmark, and I hope you enjoy whatever book you are reading.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Transportation and local government will not meet today. We will meet tomorrow at 1:30 to hear 3 bills.
Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none. You have a tribute? Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a fun tribute today for a local famous educational institution. So, Mr. Schiebel, if you would read the tribute, please.
Mr. Schiebel.
State of Colorado, the House of Representatives convened in the 73rd General Assembly hereby celebrates the 100th anniversary of Kent Denver School. In the spring of 1922, Mary Kent Wallace, Mary Austin Bogue, and Mary Louise Rathvon developed a plan for a college preparatory school for girls. On September 18, 1922, the newly christened Kent School for Girls held its first day of classes. In 1953, Andy Black and Tom Chafee partnered to found Denver Country Day, a college preparatory school for boys. After years of cooperation between their students and faculty, the Kent Denver School and Denver Country Day elected to merge in 1975, creating today's coeducational Kent Denver School. In 2022, we celebrate the countless business and community leaders, artists, and educators in the state of Colorado and around the world that have attended Kent Denver, and acknowledge the current students and faculty who will extend Kent Denver's legacy into its second century, informed by the school's core values of integrity, respect, community, personal growth, and wisdom. The Colorado House of Representatives recognizes Kent Denver's centennial anniversary and supports the founding aspirations still reflected in the school's current mission. On request of Representative Meg Froelich, given this 12th day of April 2022, State Capitol Denver, signed Alec Garnett, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Representative Froelich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. Please be seated. We're just here to recognize that Kent Denver is turning 100 this year, which we think is kind of special, and also to recognize the many people who have served in this chamber who are Kent alumni, including Tom Blickensturfer, who is here with us today, who served as a state senator, and Blanche Cowperwaith, who was the first person to have a baby in our legislature, which is applicable to our current caucus, and served in 1954. And her baby is also in the gallery with us, Jill Cowperwaith, as well as illustrious alumni include Pat Grant, who was a state representative and chair of the National Western Stock Show, which will appeal across all spectrums, and of course Madeleine Albright, one of their most famous alumni. And so we're joined in the gallery, if you guys could please stand so we can recognize you, by the chair of the board, the chairs of the Centennial Commission, and various illustrious alumni. So thank you for being here, and happy 100th anniversary, Kent.
Any other announcements or introductions? Seeing none, the next order of business is third reading of bill's final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1155.
House Bill 1155 by Representatives Willem McCluskey, also Senator Gonzalez, concerning in-state tuition classification at institutions of higher education for students who complete high school in Colorado.
Majority Leader Eskar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1155 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1155 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative Soper, how do you vote? Soper.
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Sandridge votes no. Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Caraveo votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Bacon is excused. With 41 aye votes, 19 no votes, and 5 excused, House Bill 1155 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Caraveo, Representative Burnett, co-sponsor. Woodrow, did you want to co-sponsor? Representative Woodrow, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of the House Bill 1278.
House Bill 1278 by Representatives Young and Pelt and also Senators Lee and Simpson concerning the creation of the Behavioral Health Administration and in connection therewith making and reducing an appropriation.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1278 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1278 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Sandridge votes no. Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Caraveo votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Please close the machine. With 46 aye votes, 14 no votes, and 5 excused, House Bill 1278 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Woodrow, Caraveo, Burnett, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of the House Bill 1312.
House Bill 1312 by Representatives Lynch and Woodrow, also Senators Moreno and Woodward, concerning modifications to sales tax statutes in order to address certain defects and anachronisms.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1312 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1312 on third reading and final passage. See no further discussion. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members please proceed to vote. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sandridge votes yes. Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Caraveo votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. 61 aye votes, 0 no votes, and 4 excused. House Bill 1312 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Was it ever open? Okay, if people want to co-sponsor, they get one more chance. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of the House Bill 1324.
House Bill 1324 by Representatives Burnett and Lynch, also Senators Woodward and Rodriguez, concerning modification to the definition of pawnbroker.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1324 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1324 on third reading and final passage. See no further discussion. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Soper votes yes. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sandridge votes yes. Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Caraveo votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 3 excused, House Bill 1324 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over Senate Bill 9 until tomorrow, Wednesday, April 13th.
Seeing no objection, Senate Bill 9 will be laid over until Wednesday, April 13th. Mr. Shebel, please read the title of Senate Bill 10.
Senate Bill 10 by Senators Simpson and Lee, also Representatives Benavidez and Amabile, concerning pretrial diversion programs that are intended to identify eligible individuals who have behavioral health disorders in order to divert them from the criminal justice system into community treatment programs.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Bill 10 on third reading, final passage.
Question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 10 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no objection. Wait, let me start that over. Question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 10 on third reading and final passage. See no further discussion. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Soper votes no. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sandridge votes yes. Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Caraveo votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Tipper. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 3 excused, Senate Bill 10 is adopted. Co-sponsors.
Hold on.
Well, Representative Sandridge, Representative Burnett, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read reports of committees of reference.
Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Water, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 114 as amended, 158 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1120, 1243 as amended, 1282 as amended, 1316 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Committee on Finance, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1246, Senate Bill 36 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the following bills be made special orders Tuesday, April 12th. House Bill 1306, House Bill 1282, House Bill 1316.
What time, Madam Majority Leader?
924.
Seeing no objection, the bills laid up by the Majority Leader on Tuesday, April 12th at 9:24 will be made special orders. Representative Basenecker. Seeing no objection, Representative Basenecker will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. The committee will come to order. With unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for a bill reading at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 22-1306.
House Bill 1306 by Representatives Titone and Baisley, also Senators Bridges and Priola, concerning broadband deployment grant processes implemented by the Broadband Deployment Board.
Representative Titone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you as well.
All right, thank you. I move House Bill 1306 and the committee report.
To the committee report.
All right, in the committee report, we made an amendment. We changed 30 to 45. So these are the days for comment period for the public. We wanted to make a compromise, so we did that. And I asked for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The Transportation Committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Titone.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So 1306 is a bill that needs to be run to fix a couple issues that we had with a bill from last year. So last year we appropriated some federal funds to a broadband, from a broadband grant, and we allowed that to be funneled through the Broadband Deployment Board. So sounds great, but you know, the money from the federal government had its own set of rules that were a little different from what was the Broadband Deployment Board had, so we had to straighten out that. We also made a couple other changes to the system to make sure that if there was a supply chain issue, which there have been, that the 2-year period for completion of a project could be extended if a demonstrated supply chain issue happens. And then we also changed that 45 days for the comment period to make sure we can speed the process up a little bit. And then we changed a couple things about how disputes are handled with the board. And that's what the bill is. I ask for a yes vote on the bill.
Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a reminder that the underlying bill was to provide funding for broadband to rural areas, and just a reminder, we have jealously guarded that, even though it's a lot of money and a lot of people, even here in the Denver metro area, would love to get their hands on some of that money for spending on their broadband issues, but free market, free enterprise system is naturally providing broadband to the more dense areas. So we have been in conversation with the board that makes these decisions, and I'm feeling very good, as I believe is my co-prime, that the money will go right where it is intended to provide broadband opportunities for rural areas. So I also ask for a yes vote on this bill.
Thank you, Representative Baisley. And members, it's getting a little loud. Let's take our conversations to the side, please. Members, if you could take your conversations to the side so we can hear the debate at the well. Thank you very much. Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we do have an amendment. I would like to, I move L004. And this amendment, we'll just have that displayed. So this amendment was a negotiation that we had, a robust conversation about. If you go to page 4, line 13, it says that the board shall award grant money as soon as applicable from anything that was denied before. So there was some issues about what's going to get funded, which projects are going to get, are all of them going to get funded? We wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for the board to evaluate some of those programs, but also to get the money out the door very quickly. This amendment achieves getting a couple of those projects out, doesn't use up all of the money, and then allows the board to continue to evaluate programs to go through. So this was a negotiation made by a lot of the stakeholders, and I ask for a yes vote on the amendment.
Representative Baisley, and the amendment is properly displayed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll just add that this really addresses some concerns where we were intending for only rural areas to receive the funding, but then there was involvement of some larger organizations that would get caught up in that and maybe be denied their participation. And I want to thank my co-prime, Representative Tatone, for working this one so well and judiciously and covering the bases. Really good stakeholder work, so thank you for that. And I also ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Baisley. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L004 to House Bill 22-1306. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The amendment is passed. To the bill. Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for a yes vote on this great bill.
Thank you, Representative Baisley. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 22-1306 as amended? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really want to commend the two bill sponsors for helping close the rural-urban divide. As you know, they're thinking about rural Colorado. They're thinking about the lack of internet service that we have. As so many things migrate to online portals, we in rural Colorado don't have, in many places, the connectivity. So I want to commend the folks on the Joint Technology Committee. I want to commend the bill sponsors, because both of my colleagues here are what we call urbanites, or city slickers, and where I'm from. And I appreciate their consideration greatly, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 22-1306? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 22-1306 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 22-1306 as amended is passed. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 22-1282.
House Bill 1282 by Representatives Mullica and Lynch, also Senators Bridges and Woodward, concerning the creation of the Innovative Housing Incentive Program.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move House Bill 1282 in the Appropriations and Business Affairs and Labor Committee report.
Thank you, Representative. To the Appropriations Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Appropriations Committee, we clarified that the funding source of this bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The Appropriation Committee report is passed. To the Business Affairs and Labor report. Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the Business Affairs and Labor Committee report, we took a good bill and made it even better. We increased the emphasis on long-term affordability and homeownership, clarifying definitions in the bill regarding the types of homes we're incentivizing here, expanding the types of geographic areas that can receive an enhanced incentive to include areas that have traditionally lacked access to affordable housing and economic activity, codifying a more robust stakeholder process to review applications for grants and loans. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the Business Affairs and Labor report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Business Affairs and Labor Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The Business Affairs and Labor Committee report is passed. To the bill. Representative Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a pretty exciting bill, actually. It's using some innovative methods and funds to actually create affordable housing that is manufactured here in the state. So it's really a win-win. This money's going to create jobs, but also create homes that are more affordable for folks. You know, this will be pretty crucial in some of those rural areas, ski areas, areas where folks just simply can't afford homes. But it also does some other very innovative things to include, changing and adopting some of the creative ways of making houses. So, part of this is we're acknowledging 3D printed homes, homes that are done with concrete tilt-ups, and really kind of embracing different ways of creating affordable housing for folks. This is, I think, money well spent, and I would urge a yes vote.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, before I get started, I'd like to thank the interim task force or committee that worked on these issues over the summer. Representative Roberts, Representative Judah, Representative Pico, Representative Woog, and Representative Woodrow. They put in a lot of work over the summer to really bring these ideas to Colorado to really help with what is an issue in all of our districts. And I can't give them enough praise for the work they did. Members, we know that we live in an amazing state. But we also, I think, recognize that over the last several years, this state has become less affordable for many. And I think that is why I am so excited about this bill, is that we really are looking at an out-of-the-box idea here to really solve an issue that is, like I said, an issue in all of our districts. And my colleague to my right here said it best, this is a win-win situation. We are solving a problem. We're creating a more affordable housing option for people of Colorado, but we're also creating jobs. And I'm not sure if we get this opportunity a whole lot in the chamber to really have such a huge win-win for our state. And I'm excited to bring this bill. I'm excited for the people of Colorado to be able to have us do something that is out of the box and innovative, and what I think is really going to start putting us down the path to hopefully solving some of the problems that we're facing in this affordable housing crisis. And with that, I ask for a yes vote.
Thank you, Representative Mullica. And members, it's getting a little loud. Let's quiet our conversations or move them to the side, please. Any further discussion on House Bill 1282? Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the bill sponsors can correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing we talked about in committee is how this is beginning a very rather large brand new program, and the program essentially is put on autopilot once this bill passes, and it's never checked in on again. And so, with any program we start, especially brand new ones, those programs, they do need refined, they do need tweaked, they do need improved upon once the program starts running and is up and running. So is there essentially a sunset or some sort of check on the program? Okay. it sounds like it's going to run out of money, and so it'll need a new appropriation. But what I would like is for the program itself, because I don't think the program's going to go away. And so I have an amendment here. It's L005.
Thank you, Representative Van Winkle, and we'll just wait for that to be displayed. Thank you, Representative. The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a very simple amendment, really. It's just essentially sunsets the program in 5 years. So we can look, so the legislature 5 years from now can look back on it, say, here are the things that are working, here are the things that aren't working, and either renew the program or allow it to sunset.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Van Winkle, can you move the amendment for us just one more time, just to make sure we've got it all squared away up here?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move L005 to House Bill 1282.
Thank you. The amendment has been properly moved and is displayed. Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask for a yes vote on this amendment. I heard this in committee as well. This particular bill has $800,000 going to OEDIT for in perpetuity. And so I think a sunset bill would be common sense and prudent in order to look at this process and see if it's working or not, especially in light of the bill that had passed the day before, which is House Bill 1287, which is where we put all kinds of requirements on mobile home park owners. And so they seem to be a bit of there seems to be a bit of head-to-head contentiousness between the two bills. So while I support what the bill sponsors are doing, and I think this will be a good thing for Colorado, I do want to ensure that we look at how this rolls out over time and ensure that the taxpayers are having a benefit with this bill. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you. Representative Malika.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Representative Van Winkle and Van Beber for those words, and completely agree that we should be looking at how taxpayer dollars are being spent and making sure that we are keeping a close eye, and we will be. The SMART Act hearing, this will come back before a SMART Act hearing. I think the concern that we have with this amendment is that by sunsetting it, if this is working and this is a program that's helping Colorado and it sunsets, then we would have to start all over again to bring it back instead of just having it in place to be able to add more funds. And so totally agree, and that's why we have the SMART Act hearing to make sure that we're keeping an eye. And I will say from the mobile home park perspective, they've been at the table the whole time. We've been engaging them, and so they do have that seat at the table, and so it's they're in support of what we're doing here as well. But I do think that with this amendment, we run the risk of kind of having to take it all back to square one once it sunsets, when I think we have a proper mechanism in place to make sure that we're keeping an eye on it and keeping an eye on making sure that the program's working. So I would ask for a no vote, members.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reemphasize the need for this because, as the bill states, money in the fund is continuously appropriated. That's $40 million continuously appropriated, and $800,000 of that is going to OEDIT to hire more employees at OEDIT to be able to run and implement this program. So essentially, the FTEs that are in this, that $800,000 a year is continuously appropriated to OEDIT, and the $40 million a year is continuously appropriated to the office to then go out in grants. So it's a tremendous amount of money. It's a very big, brand new program that hasn't even been tested yet, and we have sunset bills come before. We probably have 3 before the legislature at some point today in this committee or that committee. It's just common practice. We do it for even small regulations, small oversights of the government. It's common practice, and it has been in the state of Colorado since our very founding. It's one of the things that makes Colorado great as a state is that we do have that sunset process. This is a 5-year, just let the program get up and running, let the $40 million a year be continuously it allows for that $40 million a year to be continuously appropriated. It allows for that $800,000 to go to OEDIT every year for the new FTEs to get the program up and running. And then in 5 years, the legislature, and maybe in 4 years, the legislature looks at it and says, this is working. Things A, B, and C of the program are working well, but C and D, those things may be tweaked a little bit. Let's tweak that, just like we do with sunset bills all the time before the legislature. I urge a yes vote on this amendment.
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted no on this amendment or on this bill in appropriations, and kind of for the reason that Representative Van Winkle was talking about continuous appropriation. In the fiscal note, for those of you that are listening, this year, over $13,350,000. 23 and 24, another $13,324,000. And in 24 and 25, $13,324,600. So I think it's appropriate that we have a sunset or at least a review, and I would ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I think I want to be clear, this isn't a sunset, this is an outright repeal effective July 1st, 2027. And with that, I think there's obviously some issues with it as well, is that we have a loan program within this. And so when we're looking at underwriting and we're looking at how that loan program is going to operate, which is how we're bringing these jobs back to Colorado and how we're building these factories here in Colorado, we're going to have an issue, I think, when we have a date like this and with that underwriting. And so I think there's another reason for us not to do that. And so I ask for a no vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it is a repeal date. This is something that we put in statute all the time for programs. Typically, when we talk about a sunset review, and we can make this a sunset review if the bill sponsors would be amenable to that, I'm perfectly fine with that. But what sunset reviews typically for over a regulated industry, such as the architects, the architecture licensor, the dentist licensor, they receive a sunset review that goes through the Department of Regulatory Affairs, and we get it a full year in advance, which is very helpful. For programs, typically, we just have a bill that comes up, and usually it's either 5 or 10 years. I made it 5 years here, where the program, which is brand new and never been tried before in the state of Colorado, which is receiving $40 million in continuous appropriations, which is receiving $800,000 a year for OEDIT, will be tried for the very first time. All this simply does is allow the legislature in either 3, 4, 5 years, whenever the legislature wants, to be able to come back and say, okay, parts of the program are working, parts of the program aren't working. Let's make this program work better in the next 5 years than it did in the first 5 years, because there's nothing that we ever do in there that's ever perfect. Even when we have multiple sunsets on, say, the dentist or the ophthalmologist's oversight, times change, needs change, programs need to change with the times as our state develops and grows and changes along with things like the technology, the movements of people. Tiny houses right now, this is a tremendous amount of money for the creators of tiny houses, not for the citizens who need to buy tiny houses. It's a tremendous amount. I don't know, maybe tiny houses are something different in the year 2027 than they are in the year 2022, and we need to not put $40 million towards the manufacturers of tiny houses. Maybe we need to do something else in the year 2027. I don't know, but this simply allows the legislature to look at it in 5 years and say yes or no.
Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In support of this amendment, the bill sponsors had just mentioned a sunset review, or excuse me, not a sunset review, a SMART Act hearing. And in the SMART Act hearing, when I think about all of the SMART Act hearings I've sat through, there is little to no dialogue, certainly about a particular bill or a particular program as we go through the SMART Act hearing. There's just not time to mention that kind of detail. And more often than not, this might not even show up as a line item in the budget. And so for us to give $800,000 in perpetuity, $26 million in the first 2 years, seems to me an incredible stretch of the tax dollar without accountability on the backside. And so for me, that's why I would support this amendment, to ensure that that repeal process, again, speaks to the idea that we evaluate this. There's a surety about evaluating this process and the dollars spent. So I just can't support a SMART Act hearing analysis when I can just about wager that will never happen in a SMART Act hearing, nor would I even think this would show up in a line item budget to discuss anyway. So again, I support this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L005 to House Bill 1282. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment is lost. To the bill. Representative Van Winkle.
Hey, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm getting a sense here that a full repeal may not have been the best thing, and everything in OEdit, I don't know any program in OEdit that just is continuous forever, that doesn't have some sort of sunset or process like that. So I'm wondering from the bill sponsors if they would be open to an amendment, a different amendment that is a full sunset process in 5 or 10 years.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Van Winkle, I definitely appreciate where you're coming from on this. I think with how this is set up, that process is not the right one to go with here. I think the SMART Act hearing is, and making sure that we keep this on the radar, and obviously the departments will be reporting on it as well, making sure that the program is effective, and if it's not effective, giving us the opportunity to address it. But the sunset process, I don't think is the right process. I think the SMART Act hearing is the more appropriate process here.
Representative Van Winkle.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, what we're talking about here is the SMART Act hearings in the year like 2050, in the year 2070, because this bill has no expiration date, it has no review whatsoever. What the bill says is that they must come before the legislature for a SMART Act hearing forever. So I don't know how long the state of Colorado is going to be around. I hope God blesses us and keeps the state of Colorado around for hundreds of thousands of years. But this bill, the way it's set up right now, is saying OEdit must come before SMART Act hearings forever and ever and ever and ever. And there's no review, there's no sunset. A SMART Act hearing, for those watching at home, is not a review that where we can introduce legislation. There's actually no legislation even permitted to come out of a SMART Act hearing. It's simply usually a paragraph that will be put in a packet, a book about this thick. There'll be one paragraph on this saying, yes, the program's still going. There's no expiration, so it's still going. So we're not just binding our legislature in 5 or 10 years, we're binding legislature for 100 years, 200 years. And I hope the legislature at some point comes around and says, this program started in 2022, maybe we should look at it. Maybe we can improve it at some point. But this is going to get lost in the hundreds of thousands of pages of statute books that we have, and it's going to be forgotten about. And at some point, the legislature will need to look at it and say, why is this in the SMART Act hearing? Why is there $40 million continuously appropriated? Why are there all these brand new FTEs in OEdit that weren't there before?
Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I really wish the sponsors would consider a sunset of some sort, because making the statement that with a sunset or with a special or SMART meeting that it'll stay on the radar, that's code for we'll never look at it again. And I think that we really should consider having a sunset.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1282? Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in strong support of House Bill 1282 and want to thank the sponsors on both sides of the aisle for their work on this bill. As the chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force, this is one of the most exciting recommendations and proposals that we put forward, and there's a reason it had bipartisan, unanimous support out of the task force. This is about creating jobs in all of our districts, and it's about putting people who cannot afford housing into quality and affordable homes in all of our districts. This is a really important bill that the legislature needs to get passed this year because it is a win-win for all of our communities. This means that modular and innovative housing companies will have the resources they need.
And Representative Roberts, I'm sorry, I'm just going to pause you 1 second. Members, I would love to be able to hear Representative Roberts' comments on this bill. Representative Roberts, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. This bill will give the incentives and the resources that companies need, companies like existing companies in Chaffee County that are creating hundreds of jobs in that small community, building 500 to 700 homes a year that are then going to our workforce across the state who need a quality and affordable place to call home. But it's going to create this stock of housing in Colorado that can be located all across our state for people who are struggling with affordable housing. I'm sure all of you have heard that affordable housing is the #1 issue of almost every single district across the state. This type of win-win bill where we can create jobs in Colorado and take a huge bite out of our affordable housing crisis is something that we absolutely should support, and I want to thank the bipartisan sponsorship of this bill.
Representative Van Beber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too thank the bill sponsors for bipartisan work on this bill. But I still rise in support of the amendment in that this bill is predicated on the hope.
Representative Van Beber, we are to the bill. My apologies.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert.
If you could speak to the bill.
Okay,
Thank you.
I will speak to the bill. Then I rise in opposition to the bill because when I think about the reason this money is being spent, it is being spent in the hope that we will have companies move to Colorado and create mobile home or create affordable housing. There's already a market for tiny homes. That market will work itself out. They will continue to be built here. But the idea that we hope business comes here and that we hope we will make more jobs is not an assurance that I would like to spend the taxpayers' dollars on when it comes to millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in perpetuity that we do not have an evaluatory process to ensure that this is actually working. So I urge a no vote on this bill.
Is there any further discussion on Representative Lynch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear and understand the concern you guys have with this, and it looks like something that will go on in perpetuity. However, this is one-time money, $40 million divided over 3 years, and when that money is gone, it needs to go through the legislative process to appropriate more money. I think that in essence creates a sunset. If that money doesn't get appropriated because the program doesn't work or it isn't good, then it doesn't get appropriated. But if it proves out to be good, then it gets the money reappropriated. But when that money's gone, this program's gone, and that'll occur over 3 years, 13.5 million a year. So.
Minority Leader Geithner, Assistant Minority Leader Geithner, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I just want to point something out. You know, as you look at policy, it's important that we also look at the fiscal note. And the fiscal note has a good point in here. It says that the grants are limited to 20% of operating expenditures and must be at least $50,000, except in coal transition communities. It kind of goes on. But it says, and this is where I really get hung up, and maybe a sponsor can help me out. It says these grants may be used for operating expenses which may include payroll. These are tax dollars that are going to make the payroll. Like, it's a little wild that we're going to take tax dollars and we're going to pay employees at companies that are making manufactured homes. I'm not sure this is something that makes a lot of sense to me, so if someone could explain that to me. I think the idea of the sunset or a repeal or something would go a long way, and making sure that some of these concerns are alleviated, because when we have tax dollars which would go to make your payroll of your employees, that raises a very big red flag for me. So I would appreciate some explanation on that, and maybe a willingness to actually look at something that would allow for a repeal or a sunset other than the one-time appropriation of the $40 million, which is a large sum of money, and then the $800,000 in perpetuity, which may solely go to paying employees. I don't know that the government should be in the business of making private companies payroll.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Geithner. And you're right. Our goal with that grant program was to try to provide flexibility to these business owners. And like I said in our opening statements, is that this program is not just purely about affordable housing; it's also about creating jobs. And working with the stakeholders, we came up with this innovative program that is going to bring these jobs back to Colorado. And when you talk to the industry, a lot of these jobs left during the last housing recession. And so we're excited to bring those jobs back. This isn't the only or the first program that's done this to provide flexibility to business owners. And so I hope that answers your question. I don't know if it does, because I'm not seeing a response, but that's where we were coming from.
Representative Van Winkle.
Hey, Mr. Chair. Well, I do appreciate the fact that it is intended to be a 3-year program, but the part I don't understand then is why was there so much objection to either a 5 or 10-year sunset or repeal date to allow the, because if it's a 3-year program, I don't understand why in 5 years the legislature can't say, okay, we had that program for 3 years, things were good about it, it's no longer valid anymore, but no, it keeps these pages, it keeps all this text in those books back there in the state statute forever and ever and ever. There's no repeal date. So the fact that you're saying, okay, it's only a 3-year program, that's good. I'm glad we can plan that as a legislature 3 years out. That makes complete sense. But these words will be in the statute books forever and ever and ever for hundreds of years. And then furthermore, the $800,000 for the Office of Economic Development that's getting the $800,000, how do we even know that's the right amount? Maybe they need more money, maybe they need less money. That's kind of a shot in the dark right now. So for us to never, ever review that $800,000 that's going to the office out of continuous appropriations, that's just another example of why this needs to be reviewed at some point in the future. I urge a no vote as long as this is a program that will be remaining in our statute books forever.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1282? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1282 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. House Bill 1282 as amended is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1316.
House Bill 1316 by Representatives McCormick and Catlin, also Senators Donovan and Simpson, concerning the funding of Colorado Water Conservation Board projects and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 221316 and the appropriations report.
There is no appropriations report.
I just move House Bill 221316.
The bill has been properly moved. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill is the annual, meaning it comes every year, appropriation for the Colorado Water Conservation Board projects. And so this funding is for water projects that are funded through this fund and the severance tax perpetual base fund. And the CWCB provides low interest loans to municipalities and agricultural water providers all around our state. And the interest in the fund, it continually earns interest, and that interest is credited back to the fund and then used for these CWCB operations. And every year, the CWCB requires us as a legislative body to approve this bill, especially if it's over $10 million, which this one is. It's a little over $17 million, to get these monies out to these projects. These projects, and if you look in your bill or look at the fiscal note, you can see a list of the projects and the breakdown of where this money is going. This is your and our water plan in action. The local basin roundtables across the state, they determine what projects are the most beneficial to their region and to the state, and then they submit these projects for the CWCB grants. All of these projects align with the goals identified in our very important water plan, and they do have very measurable objectives. The water plan reflects many of the values of our state, including continuing our very productive economy, leading to vibrant and sustainable cities, viable and productive agriculture, strong and healthy environment, and also our important recreation and tourism industries. And I urge an aye vote on this bill.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, Representative Catlin.
Thank you. Members, this is what we do on an annual basis here at the House of Representatives. We bring the Water Conservation Board Construction Fund Projects Bill to be reviewed by the House of Representatives as to the projects that the state of Colorado is committed to build and or to continue to fund. This is one of those things that we do on an annual basis. We may not think about it a lot, but the funding goes to ongoing programs in the agency, like funding for technical assistance, for federal cost sharing, which allows us to leverage our investments in water with federal dollars. That is a big deal, because as you know, water projects are incredibly expensive. Without federal dollars, we will not do water development. So this is the way, excuse the pun, Representative Pico, is how we prime the pump. We have state dollars that we put up to show the federal government that we are willing to put an investment into those projects. Then the federal government has made project funds available to the state of Colorado.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Geithner, excuse me, Assistant Minority Leader Geithner. I'll get it right, yeah, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members, I rise in full support of 1316. Representative Catlin just talked about the cost and the expense when it comes to water projects, and certainly he's not wrong. I had the opportunity to sit down with many of the water folks in El Paso, and as they even look at pipeline development to deliver water from point A to point B, the estimated cost is $272 a foot. That's just for 1 foot. If you look at lift stations, obviously there's a lot of elevation changes throughout our state. Each lift station is anticipated to cost right around $1 million. So these projects are not cheap. This is a good focus of Colorado taxpayers' dollars because it has to do with infrastructure. It has to do with water and the ability for Coloradans to have good drinking water. And so I appreciate the support on 1316 and thanks the sponsors for their work on this.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, Representative Will.
So I come up in strong support of this bill. We need to fund our water systems, you know, and well fund our water systems. There's all kinds of things across this state that this bill helps out with and does every year, but satellite monitoring systems, floodplain map modernization programs, permitting programs, assistance to federal grants, Arkansas River support system, water forecasting, that's a big deal in our drought years, modeling for data for the upper Colorado River, reservoir enlargement projects, Platte River recovery, the Republican River Matters. These are all great projects and helps with the state water plan. I couldn't be in more and bigger support of this bill than this one. Thank you.
Representative D. Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsors for bringing 1316 forward, as water is important natural resources here in the state of Colorado. We're the headwater state, but these programs not only continue to help with water flow into our communities, but outflow too. So these are huge components, not only gauging stations. And as we're here at the well, and the prime sponsor was saying that he was priming the pump to keep the well flowing. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this. Water project, water developments are crucial to our future developments, crucial to agriculture. The best use of the water is critical for the future. And the amount of money in here, are you ready for this? A drop in the bucket.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, esteemed colleagues. I can't tell you how important this is, and I thank the bill sponsors for bringing this. You know, water is the lifeblood of agriculture and agricultural production in eastern Colorado, northeastern Colorado, southeastern Colorado. And there's two very important elements to this that I'd like to highlight for those of us in the listening audience. The first one is the Arkansas River. There's $500,000 to implement the Arkansas River decision support system. And that has been a long time system that's been in place. so we continue to implement that system for the Arkansas River. And the second one is the Platte River Recovery Implementation. This is $3.8 million that we're investing to support the Platte River Recovery Implementation Program, which implements certain aspects of the United States Fish and Wildlife Services recovery plans to provide compliance with the Federal Endangered Species Act of 1973. Now, we know how critical that is, because if there is a problem in the Platte with endangered species, that could seriously reduce our ability to use that water in agriculture. And most of you know, and I've advertised this, that 70% of the production, ag production, because of the geography and the amount of water flow and the climate and temperament that we have in northeastern Colorado, comes out of this South Platte River Basin. Also, I'll talk about the Republic. The $2 million to the Republican River Basin. And I live on the Republican River Basin. Our ranch is on the Republican River Basin. This $2 million to provide matching cash incentives to producers to reduce irrigation and facilitate land retirement within the South Fork of the Republican River. These are my people. These are my constituents. Farmers are having to stop irrigating and change their land use to dryland farming or grassland because of compact requirements with Kansas. This is so important to eastern Colorado. So I rise in support of what our leadership in the House Ag Committee has brought forward, both the chairwoman and the vice chairman, and I am a strong yes on this bill.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to mention to the membership that this is the first time since the passage of Proposition DD, the sports betting revenue bill, or that the people voted on, that we're going to be able to take dollars from that fund that's been generated outside of tax to put into this projects bill. $8.2 million of this bill came from that program. Folks, that's a big thing to happen. People weren't sure that that would work. People didn't know if that was going to be the right idea. But when the Speaker of the House and Representative Neville decided that they wanted to push this forward, these are the kind of things that we told them would happen. So thanks to them and thanks to this House, we did pass that. And the voters in the state of Colorado passed the DD proposition. It is paying big dividends for us. You don't have to gamble on it. Just go get the money.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1316. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1316 passes. Assistant Majority Leader Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee rise and report.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
House will come back to order. Representative Basenecker. Oh, no, Mr. Shelby, or Mr. Shebel. Gosh. Please read the report of the Committee of the Whole. That's a $5 fine.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report as under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1282 as amended, 1306 as amended, 1316 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Representative Basenecker. Members, you've heard the motion. There is one amendment at the desk. Mr. Shebel, please read the report, or please read the Van Winkle amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Van Winkle moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Van Winkle Amendment L5 to House Bill 1282 to show that said amendment passed, that House Bill 1282 as amended passed.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the Van Winkle Amendment to House Bill 1282.
It has been properly moved and displayed to the amendment. Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the front desk for their very diligent work. What this amendment does, and we talked about it at great length already on second reading, so I won't beat a dead horse right now, but it repeals the program in 5 years to allow the legislature 5 years from now to look at this it's actually a pretty big new program that's created within the Office of Economic Development to provide grants, loans, or existing to new businesses that will move here and essentially create tiny houses among several other things that the $40 million will be going to. But it's a $40 million continued appropriation over the next 3 years. So it's a 3-year program covering $40 million. $800,000 goes to OEDIT to hire those employees and things to manage the program. That, again, 3-year program, my amendment would sunset it in 5 years so that the legislature can look back on those 3 years and say, maybe this program was a great success, maybe it was a failure, but let's look at it in 5 years so that it's not in our statute books forever and ever and ever and ever.
Representative Molka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Van Winkle. Members, this repeals what is going to be a really good program. It repeals jobs that are coming to our communities. It repeals a program that's going to afford us a more diverse housing product, a more affordable housing product. It doesn't go through a sunset process here. It doesn't go through anything. It repeals it. And I think that that's the big issue here is that it will force us to start over at zero. Plus, members, we have a way of looking at this already through the SMART Act hearing. We're going to be keeping an eye on that. It's a 3-year program, $40 million total, $13.5 million a year for that. If the program's not working, then obviously, money will not be reappropriated. If there's fixes that we need to do, then we have that process. I ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Van Winkle amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole? Seeing none, Mr. Shebel, please open the machine. The question before us is the adoption of the Van Winkle amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole. The machine is now open. Please vote. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sandridge votes yes. Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Caraveo votes no. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Woodrow votes no. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Burnett votes no. Please close the machine. With 21 aye votes, 41 no votes, and 3 excused, the Van Winkle amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole is lost. That brings us to the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote? Representative Caraveo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Caraveo votes yes. Representative Woodrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Woodrow votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Sandridge.
Sorry about that. No.
Representative Sandridge, no worries. Representative Sandridge votes no. Please close the machine. With 41 aye votes, 21 no votes, and 3 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, you may see a number of resolutions on our calendar. I just want to give you all a heads up. The deadline to introduce them were yesterday. That's why you see them on the calendar. We'll be working to schedule them between now and the end of session. So just so everybody's clear, nobody's panicking, we will continue working on those.
Was there a motion there? Did you lay over the balance of the calendar?
Oh, I was waiting. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, Wednesday, April 13th.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until Wednesday, April 13th. That brings us to announcements and introductions. Representative Wantine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Health and Insurance is meeting upon adjournment today. Since we were so efficient, I think if we start at 10:45, we will have plenty of time to accomplish our work. So be there at 10:45 to hear House Bill 1296, and we are in room 112. See y'all then.
Representative Michael St. Genet, and then Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services. We are up today at 1:30 in room 112. We have 6 bills on the calendar. Be prepared. It's going to be a night.
Representative Pico.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had previously permission to be absent this week, Tuesday through Friday. Instead, I'll be absent next week, Tuesday through Friday.
So approved. Representative Tatone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, members, it's Tech Day at the Capitol, so go downstairs and get some breakfast in the first floor, and there will also be some folks here on the west side of the first floor showing you the technology things that are happening here in Colorado. So go down there and check it out and learn a few things about the cool high-tech things that are happening right here in the state of Colorado.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you. We have a special day and a special guest here today. I'd like the Capitol Choir to come down for a special birthday.
Capitol Choir, come on down.
Capitol Choir, come on down. Happy birthday to Representative Woog.
Wow, Representative Woog.
Capitol Choir, please. Thanks, Tony, because I know you're a good singer. Okay. A 1 and a 2 and a 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dan the Man Woog. Happy birthday to you. May the dear Lord bless you, shower graces on you. May the dear Lord bless you, Dan Woog. May the dear Lord bless you.
Thank you, Representative Will. Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.